Hi everyone, welcome to the session. The topic of this session is human memory. Let us understand what memory actually is. Memory refers to retaining and recalling information over a period of time depending upon the nature of cognitive task required to be performed. जो टास्क है जो परफॉर्म किया जाना है वो किस प्रकार का है इस पे डिपेंड करता है कि हम उसको कितना रिटेन कर पाते हैं और ज़रूरत पड़ने पर रिकॉल कर पाते हैं या प्रोड्यूस कर पाते हैं परफॉर्मेंस में. इसे कहा जाता है मेमोरी. It might be necessary to hold information for a few seconds. For example, we use our memory to retain an unfamiliar telephone number till we have reached the telephone instrument to dial. Or, for many years, we still remember the techniques of addition and subtraction, which we perhaps learned during our early schooling. बचपन में सीखा हुआ addition, subtraction हमें बाद में भी याद आ जाता है, हम उसे recall कर पाते हैं. Memory is conceptualized as a process consisting of three independent though interrelated stages. 3 stages से process होती है memory और ये stages independent भी हैं एक दूसरे से और कहीं ना कहीं interrelated भी हैं. These are called encoding, storage and retrieval. Any information received by us necessarily goes through these 3 stages. Encoding is the first stage, which refers to a process by which information is recorded and registered for the first time so that it becomes usable by our memory system. पहली बार जब हम कुछ सेंस करते हैं, पहली बार जो information register होती है उसे हम बोलते हैं encoding. Whenever an external stimulus impinges on our sensory organs, it generates neural impulses. These are received in different areas of our brain for further processing. In encoding, incoming information is received and some meaning is derived. It is then represented in a way so that it can be processed further. Storage is the second stage of memory. Information which was encoded must also be stored so that it can be put to use later. तो जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन एनकोड हुई है सेंस ऑर्गन से रजिस्टर हुई है उसको स्टोर करना बहुत ज़रूरी है ताकि उसको बाद में यूज़ किया जा सके. स्टोरेज therefore refers to the process through which information is retained and held over a period of time. Retrieval is the third stage of memory. कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन को हम तभी यूज़ कर सकते हैं जब हम उसे अपनी मेमोरी में से रिकवर कर सकें. So, retrieval refers to bringing the stored information to one's awareness so that it can be used for performing various cognitive tasks such as problem solving or decision making. तो निर्णय लेने में या किसी समस्या का समाधान करने में हम इस इंफॉर्मेशन का इस्तेमाल कर पाते हैं. और ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है कि मेमोरी फेलियर इनमें से किसी भी स्टेज में हो सकता है. One may fail to recall information because one did not encode it properly, or the storage was weak so one could not access or retrieve it when required. Let's understand the information processing approach. We will talk about the stage model. Initially, it was thought that memory is the capacity to store all information that we acquire through learning and experience. It was seen as a vast storehouse where all the information that we knew was kept so that we could retrieve and use it as and when needed. But with the advent of the computer, human memory came to be seen as a system that processes information in the same way as a computer does. Both human memory and computer register, store, and manipulate large amount of information and act on the basis of the outcome of such manipulations. Computer has a temporary memory which is called RAM, random access memory, and a permanent memory which is a hard disk. Based on the program commands, the computer manipulates the contents of its memories and displays the output on the screen. In the same way, human beings too register information, store and manipulate the stored information depending on the task that they need to perform. For example, when it is required to solve a mathematical problem, the memory relating to mathematical operations such as division or subtraction are carried out. They are activated and put to use and receive the output, which is the problem solution. This analogy led to the development of the first model of memory, which was proposed by Atkinson and Shiffrin in 1968, and this was known as the stage model. It is important to understand the memory systems. और memory systems तीन तरह के होते हैं: sensory, short term and long term. Each of these systems has different features and performs different functions with respect to the sensory inputs. As you can see in this figure, sensory memory takes in the information for the first time. It has a large capacity. However, it is of very short duration, that is less than a second. एक second से भी कम time तक यहाँ पर information रहती है. It is a memory system that registers information from each of the senses with reasonable accuracy. Often, this system is referred to as sensory memories or sensory registers because information from all the senses are registered here as exact replica of the stimulus. जैसी information बाहर से आ रही है, ये उसी तरह से उसको register कर लेता है. If you have experienced visual after images, that is the trail of light that stays after the bulb is switched off, or when you hear reverberations of a sound when the sound has ceased, it is stopped, then you are familiar with iconic, that is visual, or echoic, that is auditory sensory registers. Then the next system is the short-term memory. We do not attend to all the informations that impinge on our senses. Information that is attended to enters the second memory store called short-term memory, that is STM, which holds small amount of information for a brief period of time. Usually it is for 30 seconds or even less than that. Atkinson and Shiffrin proposed that information in STM is primarily encoded acoustically, that is in terms of sound, and unless rehearsed continuously, it may get lost from the STM in less than 30 seconds. अगर उसको रिहर्स ना किया जाए, प्रैक्टिस ना किया जाए, तो 30 सेकंड से कम टाइम के अंदर वो गायब भी हो जाती है. STM is fragile but not as fragile as sensory registers, where information decays automatically in less than a second. तो सेंसरी रजिस्टर में से एक सेकंड से कम टाइम में फेड आउट हो जाती है इंफॉर्मेशन, लेकिन STM में भी थोड़े समय के लिए रहती है, लेकिन कम से कम 30 सेकंड्स या उसके आसपास रह जाती है. फिर आती है लॉन्ग टर्म मेमोरी. Materials that survive the capacity and duration limitations of the STM, that is short-term memory, finally enter the long-term memory, which is in short called LTM. Long-term memory has a vast capacity. इसकी जो storage capacity है वो बहुत बड़ी है. It is a permanent storehouse of all information that may be as recent as what you ate for breakfast yesterday to as distant as how you celebrated your 6th birthday. It has been shown that once any information enters the long-term memory store, it is never forgotten because it gets encoded semantically. That is in terms of the meaning that any information carries. तो किसी भी information को उसके meaning से store करता है LTM. What you experience as forgetting is in fact retrieval failure. तो जिसे हम कहते हैं हम भूल गए, वो actually भूलना क्या है, वो retrieval failure है. Information LTM में होती है लेकिन हम उसे retrieve नहीं कर पाते हैं. For various reasons you cannot retrieve the stored information and then we say that we forget. अब समझना ये है कि ये जो इंफॉर्मेशन है ये एक स्टोर से दूसरे स्टोर में ट्रैवल कैसे करती है. As an answer to this question, Atkinson and Shiffrin proposed the notion of control processes, which function to monitor the flow of information through various memory stores. अलग अलग memory store में से information कैसे flow हो रही है, इसको monitor करता है. As suggested earlier, all information which our senses receive are not registered. अगर ऐसा होता कि सारी इंफॉर्मेशन जो भी आ रही है हमारे सेंसेस से वो रजिस्टर हो जाए तो मेमोरी सिस्टम पर कितना ज़्यादा प्रेशर होता. Only that information which is attended to enters the STM from sensory registers, and in that sense selective attention is the first control process that decides what will travel from sensory registers to STM. तो selective attention पे depend करता है कि कौन सी information को हम attend कर रहे हैं वो ही STM में जाए, बाकी सब sensory register तक ही रह जाती हैं. Sense impressions which do not receive attention fade away quickly. The STM then sets into motion another control process of maintenance rehearsal to retain the information for as much time as required. तो काफ़ी समय तक वो information बनी रहे इसके लिए maintenance rehearsal काम करता है. As the name suggests, these kinds of rehearsals simply maintain information through repetition. रिपीट करने से ये रिहर्स होता है और उस वजह से वो इंफॉर्मेशन वहाँ रुकी रहती है. एंड व्हेन सच रिपीटिशंस डिसकंटिन्यू द इंफॉर्मेशन इज लॉस्ट. Another control process which operates in STM to expand its capacity is chunking. Through chunking, it is possible to expand the capacity of STM, which is otherwise 7 plus 2. 7 के लगभग चीज़ें याद कर लेते हैं, for example digits, या ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा 9. For example, if you are told to remember a string of digits such as 194719492004, you may create the chunks as 1947, 1949 and 2004 and remember them as the year when India became independent, the year when Indian Constitution was adopted, and the year when the tsunami hit the coastal regions of India and Southeast Asian countries. From the STM, information enters the long-term memory through elaborative rehearsals. As against maintenance rehearsals, which are carried through silent or vocal repetition, this rehearsal attempts to connect the to-be retained information to the already existing information in long-term memory. For example, the task of remembering the meaning of the word humanity will be easier if the meanings of concepts such as compassion, truth, and benevolence are already in place. The number of associations you can create through the new information will determine its permanence. जितने ज़्यादा हम associations बना पाएंगे जो LTM में already हमारे पास information थी उससे मिलाकर, उतना ही ज़्यादा हमारे इंफॉर्मेशन जो ट्रैवल करेगी STM से LTM में वो इजीली ट्रैवल करेगी. Experiments which were carried out to test the stage model of memory have produced mixed results. While some experiments unequivocally show that the STM and LTM are indeed two separate memory stores, other evidences have questioned this distinctiveness. For example, earlier it was shown that in the STM information is encoded acoustically, while in LTM it is encoded semantically. But later, experimental evidences show that information can also be encoded semantically in STM and acoustically in LTM. तो जैसे पहले कहा जाता था कि STM में साउंड्स से इंफॉर्मेशन स्टोर होती है और LTM में उसके मीनिंग से स्टोर होती है, लेकिन एक्सपेरिमेंट्स में बाद में देखा गया कि STM में भी एक्विस्टिकली और सीमेंटिकली दोनों तरीके से स्टोर होती है और इसी तरह LTM में भी दोनों तरीके से स्टोर होती है. 1970 में शलाइस और वॉरिंगटन ने एक केस साइट किया है एक व्यक्ति का जिसको उन्होंने नाम दिया है KF. KF met with an accident and damaged a portion of the left side of his cerebral hemisphere. इस एक्सीडेंट की वजह से उनकी जो लॉन्ग टर्म मेमोरी थी वो एकदम इंटैक्ट रही, एकदम सही रही, लेकिन जो शॉर्ट टर्म मेमोरी थी वो सीरियसली अफेक्ट हो गई। The stage model suggests that information is committed to the long-term memory via short-term memory. तो long-term memory में जो information जाती है वो short-term memory से होके जाती है, ऐसा stage model में बताया गया। And if KF's STM was affected, how can his long-term memory be normal? तो अगर उनकी STM affect हो गई थी तो LTM यानी long-term memory कैसे normal हो सकती थी? Several other studies have also shown that memory processes are similar irrespective of whether any information is retained for a few seconds or for many years, and that memory can be adequately understood without positing separate memory stores. All these evidences led to the development of another conceptualization of memory, which was known as the second model of memory. This is levels of processing. The levels of processing view were proposed by Craig and Lockhart in 1972. This view suggests that the processing of any new information relates to the manner in which it is perceived, analyzed, and understood, which in turn determines the extent to which it will eventually be retained. तो वो किस तरह से परसीव हुई है इंफॉर्मेशन, एनालाइज हुई है और समझी गई है, इस पर डिपेंड करता है कि वो कितना रिटेन होगी मेमोरी में। Although this view has undergone many revisions since then, yet its basic idea remains the same. तो इस मॉडल को थोड़ा डिटेल में समझते हैं। Craig and Lockhart proposed that it is possible to analyze the incoming information at more than one level. एक लेवल से ज़्यादा लेवल्स पे एनालाइज किया जा सकता है। One may analyze it in terms of its physical or structural features. For example, one might attend only to the shape of letters in the word cat, in spite of whether the word is written in capital or small letters or the color of the ink in which it is written. This is the first and the shallowest level of processing. At an intermediate level, one might consider and attend to the phonetic sounds that are attached to the letters, and therefore the structural features are transformed into at least one meaningful word, say a word cat that has 3 specific letters, C-A-T. Analyzing information at these two levels produces memory that is fragile and is likely to decay rather quickly. However, there is a third and the deepest level at which information can be processed. In order to ensure that the information is retained for a longer period, it is important that it gets analyzed and understood in terms of its meaning. For instance, you may think of a cat as an animal that has fur, has 4 legs, a tail, and is a mammal. You can also invoke an image of a cat and connect that image with your experiences. इस तरह जो इंफॉर्मेशन एनालाइज होता है उसके स्ट्रक्चर्स और फेनेटिक फीचर्स के बेस पे वो एक शैलो प्रोसेसिंग के थ्रू होता है, और जब उसको मीनिंग से एनकोड किया जाता है तब एक डीपेस्ट लेवल प्रोसेसिंग होती है दैट लीड्स टू मेमोरी दैट रेजिस्ट फॉरगेटिंग। इसकी वजह से भूलना भी कम होता है। Understanding memory as an outcome of the manner in which information is encoded initially has an important implication for learning. This view of memory will help us realize that while we are learning a new lesson, we must focus on elaborating the meaning of its contents in as much detail as possible and must not depend on rote memorization. तो रटने की बजाय उसके मीनिंग से अगर हम किसी चीज़ को समझते हैं तो वो ज़्यादा अच्छी लर्निंग हो जाती है। Understanding the meaning of information and reflecting on how it relates to other facts, concepts and our life experiences is a sure way to long-term retention. Long-term memory को कुछ टाइप्स में क्लासिफाई किया गया है। One major classification within the LTM is that of declarative and procedural memories. Procedural को कभी-कभी non-declarative भी कहते हैं। All information pertaining to facts, names, dates, such as a rickshaw has 3 wheels or that India became independent on August 15, 1947, or a frog is an amphibian, or I and my friend share the same name, are all part of declarative memory. Procedural memory, on the other hand, refers to memories relating to procedures for accomplishing various tasks and skills, such as how to ride a bicycle, how to make tea, or play basketball. Facts retained in the declarative memory are amenable to verbal descriptions, while contents of procedural memory cannot be described easily. For example, when asked, we can tell about the eminent dates related to elections. But if someone asks how we ride a bicycle, we may find it difficult to narrate. Tulving has proposed yet another classification and has suggested that the declarative memory can either be episodic or semantic. Episodic memory contains biographical details of our lives. Memories relating to our personal life experiences constitute the episodic memory, and it is for this reason that its contents are generally emotional in nature, such as how did you feel when you stood first in class, or how angry was your friend and what he or she say when you did not fulfill the promise. If such incidents did actually happen in anyone's life, that person perhaps will be able to answer these questions with reasonable accuracy. Although such experiences are hard to forget, yet it is equally true that many events take place continuously in our lives and that we do not remember all of them. Besides, there are painful and unpleasant experiences which are not remembered in as much detail as pleasant life experiences. Semantic memory, on the other hand, is the memory of general awareness and knowledge. All concepts, ideas, and rules of logic are stored in semantic memory. For instance, it is because of the semantic memory that we remember the meaning of, say, non-violence, or remember that 2 plus 6 equals to 8, or that the STD code of New Delhi is 011, or that the word elephant is misspelled. Unlike episodic memory, this kind of memory is not dated. You perhaps will not be able to tell when you learned the meaning of non-violence or on which date you came to know that Bangalore is the capital of Karnataka. Since the contents of semantic memory relate to facts and ideas of general awareness and knowledge, it is affect neutral and not susceptible to forgetting. Since long-term memory holds a very large amount of information which is put to use with amazing efficiency, it would be very useful to know how our memory system organizes its contents so that the right information is available at the right moment. सही समय पर सही information available हो जाए, इसके लिए memory system कैसे organize करता है information को, ये जानना बहुत ज़रूरी है. It is important to note at this point that many ideas relating to organization of the content of long-term memory have resulted from experiments that have employed semantic retrieval tasks. We would agree that there cannot be any error in recalling the contents of semantic memory. For anyone who knows that birds fly will not make a mistake in answering a question, do birds fly? अगर हम जानते हैं कि चिड़िया उड़ती है तो हम उसका आंसर गलत नहीं देंगे कि चिड़िया उड़ती है या नहीं. The answer will be in yes. But people may take variable lengths of time in answering questions. कोई जल्दी आंसर कर सकते हैं, कोई देर में आंसर कर सकते हैं, which require semantic judgments. While responding to the question, do birds fly, a person will take not more than a second. But answering a question, are birds animals, may take longer. Depending upon how much time people take in responding to questions such as these, the nature of organization in long-term memory has been inferred. तो कैसे हम information को organize करते हैं अपनी memory में, ये इन चीज़ों से पता लगा है. The most important unit of representation of knowledge in long-term memory is a concept. Concepts are mental categories of objects and events which are similar to each other in one or in more than one way. Concepts once formed get organized in categories. A category itself is a concept, but it also functions to organize similarities among other concepts based on common features. For example, the word mango. It is a category because different varieties of mangoes can be subsumed within it. And it is also a concept within the category of fruits. Concepts may also get organized in schema. They are mental frameworks which represent our knowledge and assumptions about the world. हमारी जो नॉलेज है, जानकारी है हमारे आसपास की दुनिया को लेके और जो अनुमान है उसका एक मेंटल फ्रेमवर्क है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, थिंक ऑफ अ स्कीमा ऑफ अ ड्राइंग रूम. इट विल हैव डिफरेंट थिंग्स लाइक अ सोफा सेट, center table, paintings, etc., which are found in a drawing room. So far, we have examined the concept as the basic level at which knowledge is represented in the long-term memory, and the notions of category and schema as the first level at which concepts are organized. Let us now understand a higher level of organization that concepts acquire in the long-term memory. In the year 1969, Alan Collins and Ross Quillian published a landmark research paper in which they suggested that knowledge in long-term memory is organized hierarchically and assumes a network structure. Elements of this structure are called nodes. Nodes are concepts while connections between nodes are labeled relationships, which indicate category membership or concept attributes. In order to verify the proposed network structure of long-term knowledge, participants of experiments were asked to verify the truth of the statements such as canary is a bird or a canary is an animal. The answer was supposed to be either yes or no. We all know that canary is a bird. According to the results, people took longer to verify that a canary is an animal compared to that which said canary is a bird. तो लोगों ने ज़्यादा समय लगाया ये बताने में कि कैनरी एक एनिमल है और कम समय लगाया ये बताने में कि कैनरी एक बर्ड है. Because bird is an immediate superordinate category in which canary is subsumed, while animal is a superordinate category which is more distant and remote from the concept canary. तो कैनरी का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो एक बर्ड है, इसके नज़दीक जो चीज़ आती है वो बर्ड है और एनिमल थोड़ा दूर है, डिस्टेंट है, इसलिए उसको समझने में थोड़ा टाइम लगाया लोगों ने. According to this view, we can store all knowledge at a certain level that applies to all the members of a category without having to repeat that information at the lower levels in the hierarchy. तो अगर कोई बर्ड है, जैसे यहाँ पर हमने कैनरी की बात करी है, अगर हम किसी और बर्ड की बात करते हैं तो उससे रिलेटेड हायरार्की में जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है वो वहाँ स्टोर्ड है. हम एनिमल वाली बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. तो अगर हम पैरट बोलते हैं तो हम वही सारे फीचर्स देखेंगे जो हम कैनरी की कैटेगरी में देख रहे हैं. वो उड़ सकता है, उसके विंग्स हैं, ये सब चीज़ें भी हम उसके अंदर पहले से जानते हैं. तो हायरार्की में लोअर लेवल पे जाकर चीज़ों को समझने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ती है. एज यू कैन ऑब्जर्व इन दिस मॉडल ऑफ हायरार्किकल नेटवर्क. So far, we have discussed concept as unit of representation of knowledge in the long-term memory and looked at various ways in which concepts get organized. Does this mean that knowledge is encoded only in word-like format or can there be other ways of encoding? हमें सिर्फ शब्दों में ही जानकारी मिलती है या फिर हम और किसी तरीके से और रास्तों से भी हम encoding कर सकते हैं. It has been shown that information can be coded in a perceptual format or in terms of images. An image is a concrete form of representation which directly conveys the perceptual attributes of an object. For example, if we were to come across the word school, an image of our own school will get generated. In fact, almost all concrete objects generate images and the knowledge related to them is encoded both verbally as well as visually. This is known as dual coding hypothesis, originally proposed by Pavio. According to this hypothesis, concrete nouns and information related to concrete objects are encoded and stored in the form of images, while information related to abstract concepts assume a verbal and a descriptive code. For example, if we are asked to describe a bird, the first thing that happens is that an image of a bird is generated, and based on this image we describe a bird. But on the other hand, the meanings of concepts like truth or honesty will not have such accompanying images. So any information which has been encoded verbally as well as in the form of images is recalled with greater ease. तो जिनको हमने वर्बली स्टोर किया था, जो इन्फॉर्मेशन हमें वर्बली भी पता है और जिसकी इमेजेस भी पता है, वो हम इजीली रिकॉल कर लेते हैं. Information which has been encoded and stored in the form of images leads to the development of mental models. There are many routine tasks which require mental models. For example, following a road direction, assembling a bicycle, or even preparing to cook an exotic dish from instructions given in a cookery book requires that spatial mental models are created from verbal descriptions. Mental models therefore refer to our belief about the manner in which our environment is structured, and such beliefs are formed with the help of concrete images as well as verbal description. तो इसमें दोनों की ही ज़रूरत पड़ती है, इमेजेस की भी और एक वर्बल नरेशन या वर्बल डिस्क्रिप्शन की भी. और ये हमें कहाँ से मिलता है? हमारे एनवायरनमेंट में जो हमने चीज़ें देखी होती हैं और हम ये जानते हैं कि हमारा एनवायरनमेंट किस तरह से स्ट्रक्चर्ड है. Let us also understand memory as a constructive process. If we were to carefully examine the initial explorations about memory processes, we will perhaps conclude that memory primarily consists of reproduction of stored material. तो जो मटेरियल ऑलरेडी स्टोर्ड है लॉन्ग टर्म मेमोरी में, उसको रिप्रोड्यूस करना ही मेमोरी है, ऐसा माना जाता रहा है. This view was held by Ebbinghaus and his followers, who emphasized the quantity of information, कितनी मात्रा में information है, इस चीज़ पर उन्होंने जोर दिया था, that can be stored in the memory and judged this information and its accuracy by matching the contents of the storage and reproduction. कितना stored है, reproduce कैसे हो रहा है, इसके बेस पर वो accuracy check करते थे. If the reproduced version of the stored material showed any deviation, it was seen as an error and the case of memory failure. जो stored material है, अगर वो वैसा ही reproduce नहीं हुआ, कोई deviation होता है उसमें, तो इसको error माना जाता था और कहा जाता था कि ये memory failure का case है. This implied that memory was a passive occurrence of learned material that has been transported to its long-term storehouse. This position was challenged by Bartlett in the early 30s, who contended that memory is an active process and all that we have stored undergoes continuous change and modification. तो बार्टलेट का कहना था कि जो भी हमने स्टोर किया है अपनी मेमोरी में, वो लगातार बदलता रहता है और उसके अंदर मॉडिफिकेशंस होते रहते हैं. What we memorize is influenced by the meaning we assign to the stimulus material. And once it is committed to our memory system, it cannot remain in isolation from other cognitive processes. जो बाकी के cognitive processes हैं, उससे अलग होके ये information नहीं रह सकती हमारे memory system में. और इसी वजह से बार्टलेट ने memory को constructive कहा है, ना कि reproductive process. Using meaningful materials such as texts, folk tales, fables, etc., Bartlett attempted to understand the manner in which content of any specific memory gets affected by a person's knowledge, goals, motivation, preferences and various other psychological processes. तो हमारी जो knowledge है, हमारे जो goals हैं, motivations हैं, प्राथमिकताएं हैं, प्रेफरेंसेस और जो बाकी साइकोलॉजिकल प्रोसेसेस हैं, वो कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस करते हैं. इन चीज़ों को स्टडी करने के लिए बार्टलेट ने जो लोक कथाएं होती हैं, टेल्स, फोक टेल्स, टेक्स्ट मटेरियल्स, वर्ड्स, इन सब से एक्सपेरिमेंट करके ये जानने की कोशिश करी है कि ये चेंजेस कैसे आते हैं और हमारी मेमोरी कंस्ट्रक्टिव कैसे होती है. He conducted simple experiments in which reading of such stimulus materials was followed by 15 minutes break and then the participants of his experiment recalled what they had read. तो 15 मिनट का ब्रेक था बीच में, पहले कुछ चीज़ पढ़ने को दी गई और 15 मिनट के ब्रेक के बाद उनको कहा गया कि इसे आपको रिकॉल करना है, बताना है आपने क्या पढ़ा था. Bartlett used the method of serial reproduction in which the participants of his experiments recalled the memory materials repeatedly at varying time intervals. अलग अलग टाइम इंटरवल पे उनको उसको रिकॉल करना था. While engaging in serial reproduction of learned material, his participants committed a wide variety of errors, which Bartlett considered useful in understanding the process of memory construction. तो ये जो अलग अलग इंटरवल्स पे उनको रिकॉल करना था और सीरियल रिप्रोडक्शन करना था, सीरियल ऑर्डर में बताना था, इसमें उन्होंने बहुत सारे एरर्स करे पार्टिसिपेंट्स ने, और बार्टलेट ने इसको बहुत ही यूजफुल समझा उसके मेमोरी को प्रोसेस के कंस्ट्रक्शन को समझने के लिए. His participants altered the text to make them more consistent with their knowledge, glossed over the unnecessary details, elaborated the main theme and transformed the material to look more coherent and rational. तो जो participants थे उन्हें अपनी knowledge के हिसाब से, अपने experiences के हिसाब से चीज़ों को बदल दिया और थोड़ा logical बनाने के लिए, rational बनाने के लिए अपने तरीके से उस चीज़ को बताना शुरू किया. In order to explain such findings, Bartlett invoked the term schema, which according to him was an active organization of past reactions and past experiences. Schemas refer to an organization of past experiences and knowledge which influence the way in which incoming information is interpreted, stored and later retrieved. तो हम जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन लेते हैं एनवायरनमेंट से उसे हम कैसे इंटरप्रेट करते हैं, कैसे स्टोर करते हैं और कैसे बाद में रिट्रीव करते हैं, ये डिपेंड करता है हमारे पास्ट एक्सपीरियंसेस पे, पास्ट रिएक्शंस पे और पहले की नॉलेज पे. मेमोरी देयरफॉर becomes an active process of construction where information is encoded and stored in terms of person's understanding and within his or her previous knowledge and expectations. तो हम इन सब के बेस पे अपने जो मेमोरी है उसको कंस्ट्रक्ट करते हैं, तो इसे हम इसलिए एक प्रोसेस मानते हैं कंस्ट्रक्शन का. हम सब कभी ना कभी कुछ ना कुछ भूलते ज़रूर हैं, तो ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है और बहुत ज़रूरी भी है जानना कि फॉरगेटिंग है क्या और इसके रीजंस क्या हैं, कॉजेज क्या हैं. Why do we forget? Is it because the information we commit to our long-term memory is somewhat lost? Or is it because we did not memorize it well enough? Is it because we did not encode the information correctly? Or is it because during storage it got distorted or misplaced? Many theories have been forwarded to explain forgetting. The first systematic attempt to understand the nature of forgetting was made by Hermann Ebbinghaus, who memorized lists of nonsense syllables. ये nonsense syllables CVC diagrams थे. CVC means consonant, vowel and consonant. जैसे पहला अक्षर है वो consonant है, जैसे N, second vowel है O और last वाला third वाला consonant है जैसे K. इस तरह के जो nonsense syllables थे जिसका कोई meaning नहीं था, ऐसी लिस्ट को मेमोराइज किया and then measured the number of trials he took to relearn the same list at varying time intervals. अलग अलग टाइम पे सेम लिस्ट कैसे उनको याद हुई, कितने कम ट्रायल्स में याद हुई, ये उन्होंने स्टडी किया. He observed that the course of forgetting follows a certain pattern, as you can see in this picture. एक पैटर्न होता है भूलने का भी. So as in this figure, you can see the rate of forgetting is maximum in the first 9 hours, particularly during the first hour. पहले घंटे में बहुत तेजी से ड्रॉप हुआ है लर्निंग, जल्दी भूले हैं और 9 hours तक ये ड्रॉप होता गया है. After that the rate slows down and not much is forgotten even after many days. बहुत दिन हो गए लेकिन उसके बाद वो रिटेन हो गई इंफॉर्मेशन जो रह गई थी. Although Ebbinghaus' experiment constituted initial exploration and were not very sophisticated, yet they have influenced memory research in many important ways. It is now upheld almost unanimously that there is always a sharp drop in memory and thereafter the decline is very gradual. तो ये ज़्यादातर पाया गया है कि एकदम से मेमोरी ड्रॉप होती है, जल्दी से भूलते हैं, और फिर एक टाइम आता है जब वो धीरे धीरे डिक्लाइन होती है. Let us now examine the main theories which have been advanced in explaining forgetting. तो एक थ्योरी है trace decay theory, that is forgetting due to trace decay. इसे disuse theory भी कहा गया है. Trace decay is the earliest theory of forgetting. The assumption here is that memory leads to modification in the central nervous system, which is akin to physical changes in the brain called memory traces. When these memory traces are not used for long time, they simply fade away and become unavailable. तो जब भी हम कुछ याद करते हैं वो मेमोरी ट्रेसेस की तरह हमारे ब्रेन में रह जाते हैं, और जब हम इनसे रिपीट नहीं करते हैं तो ये फेड होते होते अनअवेलेबल हो जाते हैं. दिस थ्योरी हैज बीन प्रूव्ड इनएडिक्वेट ऑन सेवरल ग्राउंड्स. काफ़ी कारण हैं जिस वजह से इस थ्योरी को बहुत एडिक्वेट नहीं माना गया है. If forgetting takes place because memory traces decay due to disuse, then people who go to sleep after memorizing should forget more compared to those who remain awake. Simply because there is no way in which memory traces can be put to use during sleep. तो ये थ्योरी कैसे inadequate लगी कि जो लोग सो जाते हैं कोई चीज़ याद करने के बाद, उन्हें तो ज़्यादा भूलना चाहिए क्योंकि वो उसको रिहर्स नहीं कर पाते हैं, प्रैक्टिस नहीं कर पाते हैं, बजाय उनके जो जागते रहते हैं. जबकि जो रिजल्ट्स हैं वो ऑपोजिट हैं. दोज हु रिमेन अवेक आफ्टर मेमोराइजिंग शो ग्रेटर फॉरगेटिंग देन दोज हु स्लीप. जो सो जाते हैं वो कम भूलते हैं और जो जागते रहते हैं वो ज़्यादा भूलते हैं. तो ये थ्योरी उल्टा नज़र आती है इस तरह. Because trace decay theory did not explain forgetting adequately, it was soon replaced by another theory of forgetting, which suggested that new information that enters a long-term memory interferes with the recall of earlier memories, and therefore interference is the main cause of forgetting. तो इस थ्योरी के अकॉर्डिंग क्या था कि जो दो इंफॉर्मेशन है वो इंटरफेयर करती हैं, इस वजह से हम भूलते हैं. Interference theory suggests that forgetting is due to the interference between various informations that the memory store contains. हमारे memory store के अंदर जो बहुत सारी informations हैं उनके आपस में interfere करने से हम भूलते हैं. This theory assumes that learning and memorizing involve forming of associations between items, and once acquired, these associations remain intact in the memory. जब हम कुछ सीखते हैं तो कुछ associations फॉर्म होते हैं आइटम्स के बीच में, और ये आइटम्स मेमोरी में एज इट इज रहते हैं, इंटैक्ट रहते हैं. People keep acquiring numerous such associations, and each of these rests independently without any mutual conflict. However, interference comes about at the time of retrieval. Retrieval के समय जब हम reproduce करते हैं तो उस समय पर ये interference शुरू होता है. ये एक तरह का कंपटीशन होता है रिट्रीवल के लिए. इसको एक एक्टिविटी के थ्रू बहुत आसानी से समझ सकते हैं. As you can see here, there are two lists, list A and list B of nonsense syllables, which doesn't have any meaning. इसमें आप क्या कर सकते हैं, आप अपने फ्रेंड को रिक्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं कि वो इन लिस्ट को याद करें, और इन दोनों लिस्ट को याद करने के बाद थोड़ी देर के गैप के बाद आप उनसे लिस्ट ए के वर्ड्स को बताने को कहें. अगर वो लिस्ट ए के वर्ड्स को बताते बताते लिस्ट बी के भी कुछ वर्ड्स को बताते हैं तो ये होता है एक उस एसोसिएशन की वजह से जो फॉर्म हो गया है लिस्ट ए और बी के आइटम्स के बीच में. इसमें लिस्ट बी के आइटम्स इंटरफेयर कर रहे हैं लिस्ट ए के आइटम्स में. So this is how the person forgets. There are at least two kinds of interferences that may result in forgetting. Interference can be proactive, that is forward moving, which means what you have learned earlier interferes with the recall of your subsequent learning. And the other one is retroactive, which is backward moving, which refers to difficulty in recalling what you have learned earlier because of the new learning. In other words, in proactive interference, past learning interferes with the recall of later learning, while in retroactive interference, The later learning interferes with the recall of the past learning. For example, if you know English and you find it difficult to learn French, it is because of the proactive interference. And if, on the other hand, you cannot recall English equivalents of French words that you are currently memorizing, then it is an example of retroactive interference. A typical experimental design that is used to demonstrate proactive and retroactive interference has been presented here. इस एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिज़ाइन के अकॉर्डिंग दो ग्रुप्स लिए गए, एक एक्सपेरिमेंटल ग्रुप जिसको दोनों लैंग्वेजेस सिखाई गई, इंग्लिश भी और फ्रेंच भी, और एक कंट्रोल ग्रुप जिसको एक ही लैंग्वेज लर्न करने को कहा गया। तो रेट्रोएक्टिव में जब एक्सपेरिमेंटल ग्रुप ने पहले इंग्लिश पढ़ा और उसके बाद फ्रेंच पढ़ा और फिर इंग्लिश को रिप्रोड्यूस किया, उसके जो रिजल्ट्स थे वो डिफरेंट थे कंट्रोल ग्रुप के सेम रिजल्ट से, क्योंकि कंट्रोल ग्रुप ने फ्रेंच नहीं पढ़ा था और उसने जो इंग्लिश प्रोड्यूस किया वो बेहतर लेवल पे था, क्योंकि फ्रेंच ने इसमें इंटरफेयर नहीं किया था। इसी तरह से प्रोएक्टिव इंटरफेरेंस को भी इसी डिज़ाइन के थ्रू देखा जा सकता है कि एक्सपेरिमेंटल ग्रुप ने जब इंग्लिश और फ्रेंच दोनों पढ़ा और फिर फ्रेंच को प्रोड्यूस किया तो इंग्लिश की वजह से प्रॉब्लम्स आई, जबकि कंट्रोल ग्रुप ने जितना फ्रेंच पढ़ा था वो बेटर रिजल्ट्स दिखाए क्योंकि इंग्लिश नहीं था इंटरफेयर करने के लिए। तो इस तरह से प्रोएक्टिव इंटरफेरेंस को भी स्टडी किया जा सकता है इस एक्सपेरिमेंटल डिज़ाइन के थ्रू। Then there is another theory of forgetting called retrieval failure theory. Forgetting सिर्फ इस वजह से नहीं होता है कि memory traces decay हो रहे हैं जैसा कि disuse theory में बताया गया था, या जो stored associations हैं वो compete कर रहे हैं retrieval के समय और उस वजह से interference हो रहा है जैसा कि interference theory में बताया गया था, but also because at the time of recall either the retrieval cues are absent और दे आर इनअप्रोप्रिएट। जो रिट्रीवल क्यूज हैं वो या तो होते ही नहीं हैं या सही नहीं होते हैं। सो व्हाट आर रिट्रीवल क्यूज? रिट्रीवल क्यूज आर एड्स विच हेल्प अस इन रिकवरिंग इंफॉर्मेशन स्टोर्ड इन द मेमोरी। ये हेल्प करते हैं उस इंफॉर्मेशन को बाहर लाने में। दिस व्यू वॉज एडवांस्ड बाय टल्विंग एंड हिज एसोसिएट्स हु कैरीड आउट सेवरल एक्सपेरिमेंट्स टू शो दैट कंटेंट्स ऑफ मेमोरी मे बिकम इनएक्सेसिबल either due to absence or inappropriateness of retrieval cues that are available or employed at the time of recall. इसे एक एग्जाम्पल के थ्रू समझते हैं। Suppose you have memorized a list of meaningful words like hut, wasp, cottage, gold, bronze, ant, etc., in which words belonged to 6 categories like places of living, names of insects, types of metals, etc. If after a while you are asked to recall those, you may recall a couple of them, but if during the second recall attempt you are also provided with category names, then you may find that your recall is near total. आप करीब करीब सारा ही बता पाएंगे क्योंकि आपको कैटेगरी के नेम्स बताए गए हैं। Category names in this example act as retrieval cues. Besides category names, the physical context in which you learn also provides effective retrieval cue. आपने किस context में याद किया है वो भी एक retrieval cue की तरह काम करता है। Now we have something very interesting to discuss as to how to enhance memory. अपने स्मरण शक्ति को बढ़ाया कैसे जाए। All of us desire to possess an excellent memory system that is robust and dependable. Who after all likes to face situation of memory failure that lead to so much of anxiety and embarrassment? After learning about various memory related processes, we certainly would like to know how our memory can be improved. There are a number of strategies of improving memory called mnemonics. Mnemonics help us to improve our memory. Some of these mnemonics involve use of images, whereas others emphasize self-induced organization of learned information. First, we will talk about mnemonics using images. Images को use करते हुए हम किस तरह चीज़ों को याद रख सकते हैं. This requires that you create vivid and interacting images of and around the material you wish to remember. इसके दो तरीके हैं, the keyword method and the method of loci. Suppose you want to learn words of foreign language. In keyword method, an English word that sounds similar to the word of a foreign language is identified. We assume that you know English. This English word will function as the keyword. For example, if you want to remember the Spanish word for duck, which is pato, you may choose pot as the keyword and then evoke images of keyword and the target word and imagine them interacting. You might in this case imagine a duck in a pot full of water. This method of learning words of foreign language is much superior compared to any kind of rote memorization. In order to use the method of loci, items you want to remember are placed as objects arranged in a physical space in the form of visual images. This method is particularly helpful in remembering items in a serial order. It requires that you first visualize objects or places that you know well in a specific sequence. Imagine the objects you want to remember and associate them one by one to the physical location. For example, suppose you want to remember bread, eggs, tomatoes, and soap on your way to the market. You may visualize a loaf of bread and eggs placed in your kitchen, tomatoes kept on the table, and soap in the bathroom. When you enter the market, all you need to do is to take a mental walk along the route from your kitchen to the bathroom, recalling all the items of your shopping list in a sequence. इमेजेस के अलावा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से भी निमोनिक्स को यूज किया जा सकता है. ऑर्गेनाइजेशन refers to imposing certain order on the material you want to remember. Mnemonics of this kind are helpful because the framework you create while organization makes the retrieval task fairly easy. One way of organization is chunking and the other is first letter technique. While describing the features of short-term memory, we noted how chunking can increase the capacity of short-term memory. In chunking, several smaller units are combined to form large chunks. For creating chunks, it is important to discover some organization principles which can link smaller units. Therefore, apart from being a control mechanism to increase the capacity of short-term memory, chunking can be used to improve memory as well. In the first letter technique, in order to employ this, you need to pick up the first letter of each word you want to remember and arrange them to form another word or a sentence. For example, colors of a rainbow are remembered in this way. Vibgyor, that sounds for violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. And then there are similar other lists which we can organize according to their first letters. Mnemonic strategies for memory enhancement are too simplistic and perhaps underestimate complexities of memory tasks and difficulties people experience while memorizing. In place of mnemonics, a more comprehensive approach to memory improvement has been suggested by many psychologists. In such an approach, emphasis is laid on applying knowledge about memory processes to the task of memory improvement. It is suggested that one must engage in deep level processing. If you want to memorize any information well, engage in deep level processing. Craik and Lockhart have demonstrated that processing information in terms of meaning that they convey leads to better memory as compared to attending to their surface features. तो जिन चीज़ों के साथ हम मीनिंग को अटैच करते हैं, उनको मीनिंग्स के टर्म्स में याद करते हैं, उसकी मेमोरी ज़्यादा अच्छी होती है. Deep processing would involve asking as many questions related to the information as possible, considering its meaning and examining its relationship to the facts we already know. जो हम already जानते हैं उनके रिलेशन में और बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस पूछकर हम इस डीप प्रोसेसिंग को कर सकते हैं. In this way, the new information will become a part of your existing knowledge framework and the chances that it will be remembered are increased. और इसी वजह से ये मेमोरी में और परमानेंट होते चले जाते हैं. Psychologists have also suggested to minimize interference for better learning. Interference, as we have already understood, is a major cause of forgetting, and therefore we should try to avoid it as much as possible. We know that maximum interference is caused when very similar materials are learned in a sequence. So we need to avoid this. We need to arrange our study in such a way that we do not learn similar subjects one after the other. Instead, we should pick up some other subject unrelated to the previous one. If that is not possible, we should distribute our learning and practice. This means giving ourselves intermittent rest periods while studying to minimize interference. We can also enhance our memory by giving ourselves enough retrieval cues. While we learn something, we should think of retrieval cues inherent in our study material. We should identify them and link parts of the study material to these cues. Cues will be easier to remember compared to the entire content, and the links we have created between cues and the content will facilitate the retrieval process. Thomas and Robinson have developed another strategy to help students in remembering more, which they call the methods of PQRST. This acronym stands for Preview, Question, Read, Self-Recitation and Test. Preview refers to giving a cursory look at the chapter and familiarizing oneself with its contents. Question means raising questions and seeking answers from the lesson. Now one can start reading and look for answers of questions that were raised. After reading, rewriting is required, and at the end, testing of how much has been understood. There is no one method that can solve all problems related to retention and bring about an overnight memory improvement. In order to improve our memory, we need to attend to a variety of factors which affect our memory, such as our health status, our interest and motivation, our familiarity with the subject matter, and so on. In addition, we must learn to use strategies for memory improvement depending upon the nature of memory tasks we are required to accomplish. With this, we conclude the topic Human Memory. Namaste.